In the opulent heart of Dubai's six-star hotel, where chandeliers cast a golden glow across marble walls and velvet drapes, Sarah Collins moved like a shadow in her plain black waitress uniform. At 25, her brown hair was swept into a loose ponytail, a faint scar above her eyebrow catching the light. Her beauty was quiet, unpolished, like a pebble smoothed by a river, unremarkable next to the glittering diamonds of the elite. Born into one of America's wealthiest families but adopted by a linguistics professor who instilled in her discipline and the power of words, Sarah carried a strength most mistook for fragility. Tonight, she was a last-minute replacement, covering a shift to pay for her mother's cancer treatments back in Ohio. Her feet ached from endless hours, her shoulders tight from heavy trays, and her heart sank under the weight of a fresh text from her cousin, slipped out during a rare moment of quiet in the kitchen. Insurance denied again. We're out of options. Her fingers gripped the phone, knuckles whitening, before she shoved it back into her apron and stepped into the lion's den of the private dining hall. The air was thick with cologne and condescension, the room buzzing with tycoons, politicians, and socialites gathered for a gala of deals and displays. Omar Alford sat at the head of the table, his silk suit gleaming, his presence commanding, his sharp eyes and sharper tongue thriving on making others feel small. To his left sat his daughter, Illa, 22, a student abroad, her dark eyes scanning the room like she was memorizing every face, every word. The table was a parade of wealth and ego, a politician with a crooked tie and a hollow laugh, a media mogul with slicked back hair and a Rolex that screamed money, and Clara, a socialite whose pearls and fake smile masked a cruel streak. To them, Sarah was invisible, her scuffed shoes and frayed apron proof she was nothing in their world of power and privilege. They didn't see the restraint in her steps, the quiet fire in her eyes, or the weight of the bills piling up for her mother's care. As Sarah set down a crystal glass, Omar's voice sliced through in Arabic, sharp and mocking, "A lowly creature like her dares touch my crystal glass." The table erupted in laughter, certain the American waitress understood nothing. A man in a tailored suit, his cufflinks flashing, pointed at her apron, his voice loud enough to carry, "Did she stitch that herself? Looks like a thrift store reject." Clara leaned forward, her tone venomous but sweet, "Serving us is her big break. Good luck on a waitress's pay." The laughter swelled, a cruel tide pulling the room along. Illa shifted, her fingers twisting a napkin, her gaze flickering with guilt and curiosity. Sarah's jaw clenched, but her tray stayed steady, her face a careful mask, though her hands trembled slightly from the news still burning in her chest. The insults grew bolder. A woman with diamond earrings chimed in, "Maybe she's saving up for something better." "Poor thing." The politician chuckled, his face flushed from wine, "Probably just here for the tips." The media mogul snorted, his hair gleaming under the chandeliers, "Tips in that outfit. She's lucky we let her in the door." A young man in a velvet jacket leaned across the table, sarcasm dripping, "Bet she's never been to a place like this before tonight. Look at her holding that tray like it's her first day." The guests snickered, their eyes darting to Sarah as she adjusted a plate, her fingers brushing the silverware. Isla's napkin was crumpled in her lap, her knuckles white, but Sarah kept moving, her steps measured, her silence louder than their words. Then, Sarah's tray clinked softly as she set it down on a side table. She raised her eyes, locking onto Omar's, and spoke in flawless Arabic, "The crystal glass doesn't diminish the one who holds it. It only mirrors the dignity of the one who drinks." The room froze. Forks stilled, glasses hovered, and Omar's smirk vanished like a snuffed flame. Isla's eyes sparked, a small smile breaking free. A scholar at the table, a man with thick glasses, nearly dropped his fork, his voice trembling, "That's extraordinary. Only someone steeped in the Arab world could speak like that." The politician coughed, his tie suddenly choking him. Clara's pearls clicked as she swallowed hard, her confidence cracking. The air shifted, the room holding its breath, waiting for what came next. But Omar wasn't done. Switching to English to reclaim control, he scoffed, memorized tourist phrases. "Don't be impressed. Clara jumped in, eager to dismiss her, just mimicry. A parrot in a cheap uniform. A woman in a gold dress tapped her fork against her plate, her voice sharp, recite something impressive, or is that all you've got? The table laughed, a few guests clapping like it was a performance. Sarah's hand paused on a glass, her fingers tightening for a split second before relaxing. She didn't look at the woman, but her shoulders squared, her posture commanding attention. Isla's breath caught, sensing something big was coming. Sarah set down the glass, her movement deliberate, and spoke again, reciting a poem by Al-Mutanabbi, her voice soft but carrying the weight of centuries. Each syllable was perfect, the rhythm alive with history. The scholar gasped, only someone who's lived it could speak like that. The guests turned to Omar, their eyes expectant, some accusing. Illa whispered, Baba, she got every word right. Omar's jaw tightened, his fingers tapping a nervous rhythm. Clara's face flushed, her pearls suddenly heavy. Sarah didn't linger. She moved to refill a water glass, her face unreadable, as if she hadn't just turned the room upside down. A man with engraved cufflinks leaned back, his tone condescending, pretty words for a waitress. Bet she learned it to impress tourists. His comment drew quieter chuckles, less certain now. Sarah's hand paused mid-motion, her eyes flicking to him briefly before returning to her work. The room watched, waiting for her to bite, but she didn't. Her silence was a wall they couldn't breach. Omar's voice rose, desperate to regain control. Poetry's easy. Flowery words don't mean you understand anything real. What do you know about finance? Trade? He nodded to the media mogul, who grinned and asked Sarah a complex question in Arabic about regional commerce, tariffs and oil markets, layered with jargon and numbers meant to trip her up. Clara smirked, let's see her fake this one. Sarah listened, her head tilted, her eyes bright with focus. Isla's hands clenched under the table, her breath shallow. Sarah answered in Arabic, her voice clear, laying out a detailed analysis of trade routes, economic impacts, and specific figures from recent deals. She cited data like she'd written the reports herself. The politician's jaw dropped, and he clapped, slow at first, then faster. That's not just fluency. That's expertise. Omar's face was tight, sweat beading on his forehead. Isla's eyes shone with pride. Sarah nodded once, polite, and cleared a plate, her movements steady. The room's chatter quieted, the laughter gone. Guests looked at Sarah with new eyes, some with awe, others with unease. A diplomat with grey hair whispered, who is she? A woman in a sapphire dress muttered, she's just showing off for attention. People like her always do. Sarah's hand paused as she adjusted a wine bottle, her eyes narrowing slightly, but she didn't respond. Her posture was straighter, her movements deliberate. Omar's voice cut through, bitter, a servant's still a servant. Language doesn't change your place. Clara laughed, her pearls glinting, exactly. She's just tonight's entertainment. The politician rallied, she's probably exaggerating. No one like her could know that much. The media mogul nodded, let's be real. She's a waitress. It's an act. Sarah sighed, her gaze unwavering, and reached into her apron, pulling out an old envelope stamped with a royal seal. She opened it carefully and read aloud in a clear voice, full honorary scholarship granted to Sarah Collins, signed by Omar Alford. The room gasped, the air sucked from the hall. Omar's face went white, his hands trembling. Years ago, he'd signed that scholarship, one of hundreds, and forgotten her. Sarah looked into his eyes, you forget many, but we never forget you. Illa stood, her chair scraping, and crossed the room, throwing her arms around Sarah, whispering, I'm so sorry. Sarah hugged her back, her presence steady as a rock. Applause started, hesitant at first, then a roar. Guests stood, their faces a mix of shock and admiration. Omar sat frozen, his world crumbling. Clara stared at her wine glass, her face red. The media mogul looked away, his smirk gone. Sarah resumed her work, but every eye followed her. A man in a white suit stood, his voice unsteady, this doesn't change who she is tonight. She's still serving us. His words fell flat, drowned by the applause. Sarah paused, her hand on the chair, her eyebrow raised slightly, saying everything without a word. By morning, the story spread like wildfire. A guest's shaky phone video of Sarah's reply went viral on MidnightTales, racking up millions of views. Comments flooded in, "She shut him down with pure class. Who is this woman? Omar got what he deserved. The media mogul's company dropped him from a sponsorship deal by noon," his name dragged online. Clara's social circle turned on her, her elite invitations drying up. The politician's smug face was memed relentlessly, his campaign ads pulled. A week later, a reporter approached Sarah during a break, notepad clutched tight. "Miss Collins, your story on MidnightTales inspired millions. What did it feel like to stand up to them?" Sarah leaned against the counter, her apron folded, her eyes distant. "It felt like telling the truth," she said, then turned back to her work. Omar faced the worst. His company's board ousted him, his reputation in tatters. Illa returned to the restaurant, pressing a notebook of handwritten apologies into Sarah's hand. Sarah nodded, slipping it into her pocket, her eyes soft but calm. Years ago, in a cramped Cairo apartment, her adoptive father, Professor Al-Hassan, had taught her Arabic by candlelight, his voice rough but kind. "Words are power, Sarah. Use them wisely." That night, under Dubai's glowing skyline, Sarah walked home, her steps steady, her hand brushing the envelope in her pocket. A car horn blared, sharp like her dad's old sedan, and she paused, her gaze lingering on the tail lights fading into the night. The memory of his lessons grounded her in the city's chaos. Sarah's life didn't change much on the surface. She worked double shifts, sent money home for her mom's bills. But her eyes met the world differently, stronger, surer. A co-worker handed her a tip one night, his voice low, "You're more than this place, Sarah." She nodded, her face calm, her eyes bright. A young girl approached her, clutching a crumpled drawing. "I saw you on MidnightTales. You're so brave." The sketch showed a woman standing tall amid falling stars. Sarah knelt, her voice warm, "Thank you." The restaurant grew quieter as the story faded, but Sarah's presence lingered. An older regular slid a generous tip across the counter. "You made us think twice, kid." Sarah's hand paused on the rag, her eyes meeting his, then she nodded, the weight of his words settling in. "You've felt it, haven't you? That sting when someone judges you for your clothes, your job, where you come from. You've stood in rooms where you didn't belong, kept going with quiet strength that spoke louder than words. Sarah's story is yours, too, about standing tall, letting truth cut through the noise. Check out MidnightTales on YouTube for more stories that hit deep, and share yours in the comments. Where are you watching from? Hit subscribe to walk through heartbreak, betrayal, and healing together.